Hello, everyone. I'm Val Evans, and I am a forensic astrologer. We are going to discuss a case tonight that is out of Yorktown, Virginia, and it involves Sean Daugherty, who has been in the news over a year now due to an unusual circumstance where the police in that town have been unable to potentially follow up really good leads. And it's quite a mystery in Poquoson, Virginia. And so I wanted to talk about it tonight because there's some updates, and we had looked at the chart, the crime chart for Sean Daugherty, and I wanted to find out if we can just see a little bit more by looking at the move-in date. Hello, Rainbow Dreams. That's great. I'm glad you could catch a live. Um, sometimes I hesitate when I say crime chart because I know there are a lot of people on here who don't know what it is. So I want to explain really quickly that it is a chart of basically the placements of the planets in the sky. Now, it's an ancient astrology technique where you can find out clues with crimes. And, thousands of years ago, they did that when they would want to find gold or jewelry or figure out who the thief was in the castle. So we have modernized the clues a bit, and you can take a look at some of the findings and research that I've done on online. You can go to Amazon and check out my book, Forensic Astrology 101, using timestamps to investigate unsolved mysteries. So, that being said, a lot of people on here are astrologers and they're interested in crime charts, which is the time of the crime. But this time we're going to actually look at a different timestamp, which is the move in date of this family into this beautiful, idyllic neighborhood. And it's one of the things that some of these news outlets constantly comment on about how manicured the lawns are, uh, giving some type of visual that this is truly just a beautiful town. And what lies beneath is another question. So, hi, Jen Jen. Good to see you. Glad you could come on. So why do we want to look at the move-in chart? Well, now, first of all, we make decisions every day. We are moving in, we're moving out, we're getting jobs, we're doing all of these things, and we're not looking at the chart. So obviously, there's um, there's definitely that in the sense that this family who was moving in at this time in 2019, they didn't know what was in the sky at the moment. They had a lot of things going on. The parents, Ramona Rivas and her husband, they had just moved in. They were so excited, and they were getting ready. At least Ramona was getting ready to start a new job at the Pentagon. Her son, Sean, was so excited for her, and they had a few kids, and they had just come back from um, a Disney cruise. They loved cruising. And so Sean had gotten really good grades, and they were thinking about taking another cruise. So they were talking about it. Sean was really supportive of his mom. They had such a great relationship, very close relationship. And he would talk to her as if he was her friend. So, of course, he wouldn't want anything to spoil this new chapter in their lives. So one day in 2021, it was April 2021, uh, they were all in the home, not all of them, just Ramona, Sean's grandmother, Sean, and his little brother. And Ramona had to quickly leave for maybe half an hour, an hour, in order to take his grandmother just to the doctor really quickly. And as they were leaving, I guess there was some kind of uh, direction of some sort saying, we'll be back in an hour, or some type of command or, a verbal exchange. And up till now, there has been a suspicion that people were listening. And so we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the chart for that. And so what happened was when Ramona had returned back, she saw a horrible sight. It was fire engines and an ambulance, and she couldn't believe what she was seeing. And so what had happened while she was at the doctor, her youngest or her oldest daughter knocked on the door, couldn't get in the door. She was coming home from school, typical day. She had just finished a tennis lesson, and she has to go around the back to try to figure out how to get in. And there she sees a sight that no one should see. Uh, she sees a figure that's hanging on the swing set. She doesn't know what to think of it. She got scared. And you can read all about this. This is not a new case. It was an active case up until just a few months ago when the police decided to close the case. So, hi, Angel D. So, Angel, you always make it. Uh, so, what had happened was Sean was found hanging on the swing set with a cord around his neck, his arms cinched to a belt, under a belt, and his glasses were crushed and they were next to him. They were twisted. Now, there are photos that support all of this. So it's just, it's really unconscionable by many that they would see all of the obvious, um, clues or, evidence and see for themselves that there was foul play. Well, there's a lot of podcasts about this, but Ramona and her friend, who was an adult who came over, her friend sat and listened to the police give or ask for an interview with Ramona, and it was basically as if they wanted to come to a conclusion being without doing their jobs. It seemed like that, and that's what I get from some of the podcasts that I listen to. So anyway, past that, there's a big hand mark on the door. There was blood on the wall. There seemed to be some type of event that happened. So I'm going to take you over to a quick news story. Hang on a second. Okay, this is the latest that I've seen. Actually, I'll show you the latest. This is about the police. What happened to Sean? Sheriff closes investigation into death of Yorktown boy. Now, this was May 2023. The York Poquoson Sheriff Office has officially closed its investigation into the death of 12-year-old Sean Daugherty. Authorities said Sean was found in the backyard of his home hanging from a swing set in April 2022. The Chief Medical Examiner's Office reported Sean was suspended from a shoelace-type string with a bag over his head and his arms secured by his sides with a belt. He was found wearing his stepfather's clothes, shoeless with no glasses on. The chief medical examiner's office ruled Sean's death a suicide, but his family did not agree with that ruling and for the last year has been pushing to have the case re-examined. So on Monday, Sean's family sent the following statement. We appreciate the hard work from all involved, and we look forward to gaining access to investigative files and information, which I believe they did. And going through it, they found some surprising things, which I hear may come out. So they also have a Facebook page, What Happened to Sean, if you want to take a look at it. And the latest post is August 23rd, exactly 1 month ago. And the post is when your neighbor sells their house, moves to another town, and then their new house gets raided by the FBI. Weird. Weird indeed. So we're going to click on that. And let's take a look at this. Poquoson, Virginia. Now, this is the same region where Sean's family lived. Of course, they moved after this. But this is known as a quiet and solid neighborhood with well kept lawns. Remember, I told you about that? So, what happened here on West Carriage Hill Drive was surprising. In the early morning hours, the FBI were out in force executing a sealed search warrant. They had a bullhorn for the residents to come out with their hands up. It's pretty dramatic. All occupant all occupants, this is the FBI. We have a search warrant for the residents. Come out with your hands up and nothing in your hands. Do it now. Video sent in by a wavy viewer showed multiple law enforcement vehicles in that area. Law enforcement was not in short supply with the FBI, Virginia State Police, K-9 and Bomb Squad, and Pocosin Police. Um, so I don't know who Sandy Sampson is, but she was there as well, and she once lived in the house that was raided. She says, I got a text from my sister's mom's. My sister mom's old house just got raided. The cops are there, the FBI, and so I was. So she's like, I'm going to go check it out. Since this is a sealed search warrant in an ongoing investigation, the FBI won't say much except that the search was court authorized. The statement went on to say that there was no threat to public safety. Well, I'm not sure about that. No arrests were made, but a neighbor said she saw one of the occupants of the house with an FBI agent. To that, the FBI said there have been no arrests yet as the investigation continues. Freddie Rumbach couldn't believe what he saw when he looked out his door. Everyone was here, state government, federal with big bumpers on, local police, seems like everybody was here. Neighbors confirm a mother and two grown sons lived in the house, and they just moved in. Two grown sons, remember that. A man left the house and wouldn't stop to talk. He returned about 30 minutes later. Pretty intimidating and scary, Sampson said. I don't know what to think about what is going on. So, this is a month ago, ongoing investigation. So, we can't say all the things that we want to say. It's not a cold case. But, oh, there's Summer Rae. How are you doing, Summer Rae? Glad to see you guys again. I know. Why some PDs seem to take a pass rather than deep dive, like that boy ran over by his abusive father and they didn't look into it either. It's pretty amazing. I know some investigators and I've heard some horror stories. I've heard where they're national, exploited children types of nonprofits. And, you would think that they would have all these files. And when these private investigators come in to help, they look and they only see the flyer for the missing person. Like people say that they're investigating, but really, what are they really doing? That's a good question. So anyway, I'm going to show you what I pulled together here. Now, this is the chart for when the Rivas family moved in to their home. And, these charts are interesting sometimes. It doesn't always work like this. I've never seen something um, just so obvious. Is that the word? In my life when I see a chart, but you can see a basket turning upside down. And I'm going to show you a couple more that you can see. Now, this is, like I said, the chart for when they moved in. It was at 11:45 a.m. On April 8th, 2019. So you can see a stellium there in the seventh house. And Capricorn often means the government, especially with all of those planets in there. Saturn in Capricorn, that's a lot of government. And it might seem that, there could be some government people around because it certainly is a region where a lot of the military families, law enforcement, they live in these towns. So, because it's close to DC and, other military bases. So I'm going to get back to my thoughts on this, but this is also a grand trine here in the same chart for the move-in chart. And notice that the planet at the top is the sun. It is at 18 degrees, which is, the devil degree, and it's in Aries. So this is a person who I'm not sure who it is just looking at it right like this, but it seems like a person who's very angry, and someone who might be uh, capable of committing evil acts. I rarely see the sun like up in the 10th house. Like it is extremely prominent. And that means it's very strong. Uh, so Hilariot says, so the raid was at the house they moved out of, or the new one they moved into. The new one that they moved into. Yeah. So they had moved from the neighborhood of the Rivas family when they lived in this house. Okay. So you can see this this big grand trine. You see a big blue triangle, and I don't know if you noticed, but you can see um, some of the degrees. 22 is the kill or be killed degree, and North Node in the first house. This is how people will see you, okay, or how people see your house. And with the North Node there, it could mean that you might have a foreign name. North Node is foreign. And it can show, so, people might see you maybe as a very friendly family. And the ascendant is in Cancer. It's a warm family that's close. They get along very well together. They care about others. They're good neighbors. So an ascendant in Cancer is a really nice sign uh, to, as far as a move-in date, to have your rising sign. So yes, was wearing his stepfather's clothes. So it's I think it was potentially a method to create chaos, but another piece of the uh the puzzle is that we haven't figured out is why Sean's clothes were not found. And what's really interesting about how this case played out was Sean took a picture of himself for school, maybe within the hour before, because he had to do that in order to send in his homework. And so you can see his clothing. So I guess they looked at those the clothing that he wore and realized that it wasn't anywhere in the house. So that was another part of this mystery. Oh, there's Shelley. Wow, it's great to see you. Only on for a sec, just a little bit of internet time left. Have a great show. Miss you. Hope you're doing well, Shelley. And Shelley's one of our biggest supporters. So, okay, so the grand trine here is it's pretty big because you have Jupiter there in the sixth house. Now, what does Jupiter tend to represent? Well, it can represent a husband, but it can also represent a child that is between maybe 6 and 15. The Mercury, which would also play out in this chart, which is at the top, can represent the little baby, a 2-year old, which they had. And Sean was watching when this was all happening. He was excited that he was going to be able to watch his little brother while Ramona and her mom or his grandmother went out for a little bit, and was excited to have that responsibility. So we've got that grand trine there. It is, usually when you see a grand trine, it's like, oh, this is something exciting. Something is flowing. But to me, what it shows is that whoever is very angry about something at the top, and this is really angry, not unlike the Koberger situation or the Moscow, Idaho murders, where there was that motive of anger, something just stuck in their craw, and they had to remedy it, for lack of a better term. So the sun is trining Jupiter, which would mean that this angry person, not only is he super angry because sun is in Aries, that's hot, like hot blooded, hot under the collar. But with Jupiter there, that is extremely, extremely angry. It can also mean military, like there's a lot of military. Now, you can look at this either way. Somebody might see that because the Rivas family was considered a military family. Maybe they saw them as an enemy of some sort. And there have been rumors that there are anti military groups around there. So, something to think about and something that this chart would support. So, I'm going to go to the next slide. Now, this is weird. Now, this is the transit chart. So, the orange symbols on the outside are the transits for the day that his home was invaded. And you can see that there's a house. It actually shows a house. And there is a big cross that goes through it. And there's, a big line that's slashed through it. And there's Saturn up there in the 8th house. This is a person who wants to create some kind of, it's like he's a renegade because of that Aquarius there. Uh, Saturn can also mean a darkness. So now it's interesting how the part of fortune is in the 2nd house. This would reflect that the family, I mean, it was and is a beautiful neighborhood where people have money. And so part of fortune is in Regulus or right near Regulus, which is the king and queen or the royal degree, a successful family. And so you can see how there's something that is uh, just blocking it. It's like just does not like this success. And there was some conversation with the family friends that often the family would they would gather in their backyard, they would laugh, they would have bonfires. It was a very close family, and everybody knew they were close, that they were traveling, that they were always jumping around and happy. And so there is the theory that this was heard often, and there might have been some kind of a jealousy that had to do with one of a couple of motives for what happened to poor little Sean. So now, here's another part of the chart that I emphasized, and this is the move-in chart. And let's see here. Just want to double check. Yeah. You'll see this is called a point of Thales. And it's something like if you're looking at your solar chart, you look for these types of things because it's the good part of the chart. And so, you see all these other things like the T square, which is that red triangle. And, it seems like there is some trouble there. But with this point of Thales, it shows that the parents, which are represented by Mercury and Neptune at the top. Why? Because Ramona, the mother, is Neptune. She is the Lord of the MC, and her husband is represented by um, the IC, which would be Mercury. And they're together. Neptune often means of foreign descent, and they're not able, you can see there's a square to Jupiter. They're not able to help Sean. You can see that red line there. But notice how with the ascendant, there's a trine to the 9th house. Again, this is uh, foreign from a long distance. And then there's a sextile to Capricorn. And from what I'm seeing, it shows that the government likes them. The government helps them. They help the government. It is a very friendly type of family unit that the government trusts. And so this is how it's coming off to me with this chart, that this is what this family has going for them is they're going to get that stability from the government. And unfortunately that was interrupted a couple of times. They moved after this, of course, and then there was changes in jobs and all of this, and it was just an absolute nightmare for this family. So this is the crime chart for Sean Daugherty. And you can see me and Todd Siegel, we look at the crime chart. Todd was the one that brought me into this because he was looking at it for Ramona. And we're trying to get an idea of, what could possibly have happened. So it seems that with all of the information that's coming out, and you'll notice that we had touched on this as well way back, a year ago, that there could have been some type of, um, enemy, a hidden enemy in that neighborhood. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a video that I put up where the family put a camera outside, and you can see somebody who it's super sketchy. The guy just leaves his car, like, I don't know, it's like a half a mile down the road, and walks up, and he wants to take a look. The family doesn't know him. He doesn't know the family, and he just wants to look at all the cards and the memorial for Sean. And then he looks up at the camera and then walks away. Now, I hope that if the FBI is investigating, and I'm sure they're looking at different groups, they're looking at different types of profiles, they look at that, because I wonder if in this circle of people that they're investigating, they might recognize that man, because I think there might be a network here. And Aquarius, look at that. It's the network. It's in the sixth house of stalking, of just friends and networks. And you can also see that I put a blue arrow next to the North Node, and that is right on Algol, which is the devil. So it is something that was in the sky at the time, and it's right next to Uranus. And so Uranus it's like a shock. With North Node next to it, it's a big, big shock. And so it's it's pretty, I mean, with Algol, we've seen that a couple of times in, the past few charts that we've been looking at. But the other thing too is it looks like a pretty simple chart, doesn't it? But what I circled Venus, and what does Venus represent in this chart? The third house of the neighborhood, of maybe neighbors. And Venus sextiling Uranus is fast, super fast, get in, get out. And they were able to. Venus in uh, Pisces can be people who use drugs. Now, it can also show a foreign type too, which would completely tear apart this whole theory of maybe, anti-military types of people. But you could say that this person loves Venus drugs, so loves drugs, and maybe speed too, because it's a sextile to Uranus, which is very, very fast. So I don't. That was one of the things that were just, it was perplexing to law enforcement, was how could this happen in the span of time that it did, with Ramona leaving for less than an hour, and then she comes home and she finds this. So so the south node in there is the truth. So south node means the truth, north node means the lie. And so in the third house, that can show maybe a neighbor knows the truth. And it also shows that a neighbor leaves too, which would be true. So didn't think about it. That I haven't looked at this chart in a while. Um, let's see. So Aries would be a big thing here. Aries is police. It's it's blood. It is harm. And with Chiron there in the eighth house, Chiron is to harm. And so maybe wanting to hurt Chiron, the military, which would be Aries. So much clustered on one side of the chart. And that's got to open up some clues. And I don't want to go too much into it because I've already done the entire crime chart. And you can take a look at it on my channel. Uh, yeah, he was, and they're thinking that it's difficult to talk about, but there was evidence that Sean's clothes were taken off, and there may have been a sexual act. And in order to, I personally think it was done to shock. But some theories are that they did it because it was just easier to put the clothes on. And I just, I guess they potentially wanted a souvenir. So if there are any raids that are going on in that area, hopefully they're also looking for things that people keep, like souvenirs. And it's it's pretty it's pretty bad, I think. Now there are other, and I'm going to get their names and see if we can take a look. Maybe tomorrow or maybe next Sunday we'll see if there's a serial killer on the loose. Why? Because Sean isn't the only one who was found in the state, and the police ruled it a suicide. There's been quite a few in the area. So I wonder, and they're all between like 12 and 15, I think. So I'm going to get that information. And if you guys want to dig in a little bit, it's in the Yorktown area. Um, I'm not sure all of it is reported, to be honest. So, yeah, I know it breaks your heart. So, if you guys are interested in taking a look, or just giving a little bit to the Rivas family, they have a GoFundMe, and you can. I think I put it in the description. And so, take a look. They can always use a little bit because they have to. They hire an investigator and they hire a lawyer, and so this has been very, very costly for them because the investigation in their minds was not done fully. Now, it'll be also really interesting about the photos that were given to the family, and were they any good? Did they show anything? And I think that's going to be also interesting when it comes out. So there's Ramona there with Sean, and this was on their cruise. They were so happy together, and it just breaks your heart. So that's all I really have for tonight. We can look a little bit further. Oh, I put in the move-in solar return chart. I forgot about that. Well, we would look at the move-in chart as if it was a birth chart. So we can do a solar return, and this would just be would it be the second year? So this is what it would look like. And we're talking about law enforcement. Mars means, it can mean the weapon. It can mean men, two men. And so Mars in Gemini. So that's a potential clue. But we also have squaring Neptune. So what could that be? I think it might be you know, it, it's possible. I've seen it before. I'm not saying anything about this particular case, but I've seen it before that can mean a police scandal. And so this is really what the solar return chart is. It's going to reflect that year of what this family, of what the house, in a sense, is going through, because this is the move in chart. And so Jupiter is the ascendant. And the fifth house, which would rule the family, is in Aries. So the family would really, obviously, it would be devastated with that square to Pluto. A Pluto square is just a complete transformation, but not in an easy way. and can also mean death. So, definitely there was there was some trouble, that you can see reflected in this chart. Also, Jupiter would represent, um, Sean, and Moon is right next to it. So you can see that Sean would, in a sense, become famous when you have Moon next to a planet. Usually shows that the public is interested, that the public wants to help. So there's a pretty big trine there. It's like a mini trine, but it's still um, Jupiter trines Mars, which is, hmm, it's almost like the perpetrators were able to get to, you know, their target in this. It's just an ease they had. They were able to easily get in the house. There were a lot of weird things that happened, like there were trash bags that were ripped up, um, and then there was that handprint. The chair, there was a big heavy chair that was brought down to the swing set, and it was just like a week or two before then when they had a family gathering. They had asked Sean to bring down the chair, and it was too heavy for him. So little things like that that you would hope to be able to tell investigators, and they would listen and say, yeah, this isn't just your ordinary open and shut type of investigation that we should be conducting. Uh, so I think the biggest thing from this solar chart is that Mars and Neptune, but can show that these men, if they are men, want to hide, and they're going to try. Neptune is hide, and they're not going to be able to. North node right there, that's what you would get in the chart, for lack of a better term. And that's really, you know, hmm, North node. And remember, this is a move in chart. So it's not like really a person, but seventh house is open enemies. And it just seems like that's what would come into their lives, which would be North node. That's what comes in, is for them, it would be two men would come into the scene. It's very, very hard to talk about, uh, especially thinking about what the family's gone through, just so much. I mean, these people, and they never complain. They are just the kindest people. Oh, I can't even talk about it. But with the ascendant, you can see there, and you can see the south node is in the first house. So it shows that they are going to leave, I think. That with the south node, it's purging, but it also shows that they have to say, you know, goodbye to Jupiter, what Jupiter represents. And Uranus, now a lot of people, most everybody has this or had this at this time, which was Saturn and Uranus in their charts. And that was just painful for, I would say, most people. So now in our solar charts, we don't have it except for a few Scorpios and Sagittariuses and Capricorns, but we're slowly cycling out of that so that we don't have the Uranus Saturn square. Super difficult. It is just it's either a big break that's uncomfortable, or it is it you just feel stuck, and that's part of essentially what was going on here. Saturn in the second house, suddenly the family needed money in order to support this investigation. So the second house was really hit that year when it comes to, and I hope I'm not, giving away too much information, but I mean, you can imagine how much cost there was to have a campaign, have because there was a big PR campaign. There were signs that were put in the yards. The neighbors were helping. So, so if you wanted to see the neighbors, it's And I don't think these are the good neighbors. The third house is ruled by Aquarius. So these are kind of the people who break the rules, the Aquarius people. And that's in the fifth house. And so these rule breakers were in, you know, basically broke up. Uranus is to break up. And so fifth house is that family. So I'm not sure why. There's a square to the second house. That could have just been, and remember, this is not one of their charts. It is the move-in chart, so we have to remember that. So that would be mostly just the house itself and, maybe, the players in a sense, the people who live there, but not necessarily we could get every single detail about it. But very interesting how the second house plays out there. And, you know, I think it speaks to anybody who needs to say something online now. Um, they have to they have to really like promote what had happened. And and I remember Facebook shut down their page. It was awful. They got so much criticism from the public. And it was very difficult for them. Trying to think, I don't really see the public giving them a hard time necessarily from this. I could probably see it from the crime chart. But yeah, it was like they had to do what they could do to get Sean's name out there. And in today's social media, I mean, they had to become experts. And at first, it was not taken very well. So, very difficult to try to raise money to investigate something that you think fell short and not be criticized. It was just like a rock and a hard place for them. So, is Black Moon Lilith in Taurus significant? Oops. Um, yeah, I was looking at that. Black Moon Lilith there. It can show a hidden enemy. Black Moon Lilith, as you know, is like the darkness. So, yeah, I think that I'm not seeing anything really except that it could mean, like a hidden enemy. There's somebody, sixth house is hidden enemy, 12th house is hidden enemy. So it's like there's somebody there that's hard to see. Now in Taurus, uh, hmm, the only thing that was Taurus related that I can think of is that when he was in the home, he was eating a peach and he put it down. And so Taurus is the food. So that was potentially what he was seeing when he was eating. But I can't think of what else. It could be money too. We still haven't seen all of the pieces of this case. And I think that there could be something financial about what they're doing. It's possible that, and I think the family has considered this, that whoever invaded their home may have taken a souvenir, taken photos, and may have gained financially. So there's always that thought that there's some kind of network going on, and that's what Aquarius would be, and that's what Uranus would be, that network of trying to gain somehow. Because you would think that the neighbors were doing very well, but there were, I think, in my mind, there were some anomalies. So, possible that they were trying to find work or they weren't doing so well financially. And I think there were some comments from some of the family members saying that they saw people watching the house. So you never know. You think you're moving in to a place that is just idyllic. It's beautiful. You automatically assume the neighbors are going to be nice and successful and have good families. and not the case for this particular instance. So anyway, yeah, I there definitely is that possibility, I think, and I think we might see something else come out after that raid. Hopefully, they can put things together, but I really do believe that there is somebody that could be dangerous out there, because they have not apprehended this person or persons. So, you got to love some of the news articles how law enforcement says that there's no danger to the public. Well, we don't know about that yet. We don't know. We hope not. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of, you know, looking at a move-in chart. You can look at your lease to see if you're going to like your home. It's not always going to be very dramatic, but but in this case, there was, just a definite. It was almost like it was a faded type of thing. Just the sky was not right, and remember, it wasn't right for a lot of people because this was 2019. We were coming into some very tough times. So it's almost like the planets were just positioning themselves in a certain way. And especially with all those 22s, you can also see with Saturn in the seventh house with the South Node and Pluto. That's a lot of bodies left behind, which would make me think that this is potentially a serial killer situation. So we're going to look into that a little bit more. Thank you, Shelley. I'm so glad you're still on. And I think about you often. Uh, Shelley and I talk, and I hope you're doing well. So, so I'll look into this further, and we'll figure out what's going on. Who is who else could be potentially affected by these potential perpetrators? I think that's the question that a lot of people want to know. And we want to know what's going to happen now. So we'll keep you updated on that. Thank you, Hilarious. I hope none of you went to sleep with my voice, but you know what? It's almost 10 here, so that might be a good thing. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon, probably tomorrow night. Talk to you soon.